What if I told you that the rarest woman in the world is not the loudest in the room, not the one who conforms, not the one who seeks validation, but the one who has reprogrammed her mind, rewritten her story, and risen above her patterns? She is not rare because the world made her that way. She is rare because she made a conscious decision to no longer be ordinary. She is the woman who understands her energy is her currency. Her intention is her power, and her mind is the gateway to her greatest transformation. Today, we are diving deep into the 8 divine virtues that set this kind of woman apart. The woman who has awakened, the woman who lives in alignment with her highest self, the woman who has become truly rare. Asterisk, she sits quietly in the middle of chaos, not because her life is perfect, not because nothing goes wrong, but because she has trained her nervous system to remain undisturbed in the presence of storms. This woman is not emotionless. She feels it all deeply, but she no longer lets those feelings run her life. She is no longer addicted to reacting, to proving, to defending. She has remembered something most people forget. She is not her thoughts, not her emotions, and not her circumstances. She is the awareness observing them all. There is a deep transformation that happens when a woman learns how to sit with her emotions instead of being consumed by them. When she begins to watch her own internal movie, the one she's played over and over again, the script of pain, betrayal, and not enough,ness, Sand decides she is ready to write a new one. Most people are living in a constant state of emotional reaction. Someone says the wrong thing, and they lash out. Someone doesn't text back, and they spiral. But this woman, the rare one, she catches herself. She breathes. She pauses. She doesn't just feel the emotion. She studies it. She knows that every emotion is a signal, not a sentence. Anger tells her a boundary has been crossed. Sadness tells her something needs to be released. Anxiety reminds her she's rehearsing a future she doesn't want. But rather than escaping these emotions, she meets them with curiosity. She understands that every time she pauses instead of reacting, she's rewiring her brain. She's choosing a new neural pathway. And over time, those old programs, the ones that screamed, "You're not safe, you're not enough, you're not loved," they begin to fade, because she has chosen to stay conscious in the very moments most people go unconscious. She didn't learn this. Overnight, there were times she screamed, cried, broke down. But eventually, she realized that every time she reacted, she was just repeating a pattern. The same argument, the same pain, the same outcome. It wasn't about the other person. It was about her energy, her signal, her belief system. And so, she started small. A breath before speaking. A journal entry instead of a text. Meditation instead of a meltdown. And slowly, the space between trigger and response expanded. And in that space, she found her freedom. Emotional sovereignty is not about suppression. It's not about pretending to be calm when you're not. It's about reclaiming your power in the very moments it feels like it's slipping away. It's about no longer outsourcing your peace to other people's behavior. The rarest woman in the world knows that when she reacts, she gives her power away. When she responds with awareness, she retrieves it. She is no longer addicted to drama because her nervous system is no longer wired for it. She doesn't need the chaos to feel alive. She finds aliveness in silence, in stillness, in intention. She no longer seeks external permission to feel grounded. She generates her peace from within, and that kind of power cannot be taken, only surrendered. But she doesn't surrender it anymore. When the world pulls at her through conflict, through noise, through expectation, she returns to herself. She goes inward, not to escape, but to recenter, because she knows that her internal state determines her external experience. She is no longer living by default. She is living by design. And every time she chooses not to react, she is casting a vote for her future self. The woman she is becoming is shaped in those exact moments when no one is watching. When the old program screams for attention and she gently says, "No, not this time." This is the foundation of real change, lasting change, not surface level. Motivation, but cellular transformation. She doesn't just know intellectually that she can respond differently. She embodies it. She becomes it. And eventually it becomes natural. Her baseline rises, her presence shifts. People feel it. Not because she's loud, but because she's clear. She is not detached. She is deeply connected. But she is connected to something greater than the noise, to her center, her breath, her truth. She no longer mirrors chaos. She holds presence. She no longer absorbs energy. She alchemizes it. Her emotions no longer rule her. They guide her. That is what makes her rare. She is a woman who has remembered who she is. Even when the world tried to make her forget. Asterisk, she doesn't raise her voice to be heard. She doesn't chase to feel wanted. She doesn't shrink to fit in places that cannot hold the fullness of who she is. The rarest woman in the world has discovered something most never do: what it truly means to respect herself. And that respect is not loud or aggressive. It's not defensive. It's calm, unwavering, and rooted in a deep knowing that she is enough. Not because of what she gives to others, but because of who she chooses to be every single day. Radical self-respect is not just about saying no to others. It's about saying yes to yourself, even when it's uncomfortable. It's recognizing the moments you've abandoned yourself for approval and deciding you won't do that anymore. It's looking at the version of you who tolerated what felt wrong, who stayed quiet when her soul screamed, and choosing to be her protector now, not her betrayer. It's not a performance. It's a decision, commitment to live in alignment with your truth, even if it costs you comfort or connection. Most people don't realize how many times a day they betray themselves. A small agreement to stay silent when something inside of them says speak. A smile when they feel unseen. A yes when their entire body says no. But this woman has begun to feel the weight of those betrayals. And instead of numbing or distracting, she has made a conscious choice to return to herself. To honor the inner voice that whispers, "This is not for you. This is not who you are anymore. This is not how you treat yourself." She no longer tolerates relationships that drain her, spaces that dismiss her, or conversations that diminish her. Not because she's cold, but because she finally understands that protecting her peace is not selfish, it's sacred. She doesn't have to prove her worth anymore. Her presence alone is enough. She no longer explains her boundaries to people who benefit from her having none. She doesn't argue with resistance. She simply exits what is misaligned. With grace, not bitterness. With clarity, not chaos. And this shift didn't happen because she read it in a book or heard it in a podcast. It happened because life brought her to her knees. It happened after she gave too much for too long, until one day, she woke up and realized that she was the one she'd been waiting for. Not someone else to choose her, but her choosing herself. Not someone else to see her worth, but her seeing it, finally, without apology. This self-respect is not an armor. It's a frequency. It's a vibration that says, I know who I am. I know what I deserve. And I will no longer shrink to be digestible to people who are not ready for my fullness. She walks differently now, not because the world treats her better, but because she treats herself better. Her energy no longer asks for permission. It simply declares, I belong here because I say so. This kind of power is cultivated in silence. In the mornings when she chooses herself first, in the evenings when she reflects on what she accepted that day and promises herself to do better tomorrow, it's in the subtle moments when she stands up for herself without needing to be loud, when she removes herself without needing to be angry, when she honors her body, her time, her space, not as a reward, but as a way of life. She's not interested in being liked. She's interested in being real. She's not here to be convenient. She's here to be true. And the more she respects herself, the more her world changes. Not because the world has shifted, but because she has. She attracts differently now. People feel her boundaries without her needing to announce them. Her absence speaks as powerfully as her presence. She no longer asks for what she deserves. She expects it. If it's not offered, she doesn't stay. The rarest woman in the world lives from this place, not out of pride, but out of reverence. Reverence for her journey. Reverence for her growth. Reverence for the wisdom it took to become this woman. She has unlearned the patterns that taught her love meant sacrifice, that being wanted meant being small, And now, she gives herself the love she once begged others for. That is her revolution. That is her quiet, unwavering rebellion. Not just surviving her story, but rewriting it. And in doing so, she becomes a mirror to others. A reminder that self-respect is not something we earn from the outside, it is something we remember from within. She no longer wakes up rehearsing the pain of yesterday. She no longer allows the memories of who hurt her or what didn't work to set the tone for her day. She knows now that every single morning is a portal, a sacred doorway into a new version of herself. While the world moves on autopilot, she moves with intention. While others relive their past, she creates from her future. This is not because she's better than anyone else, but because she finally made a decision to stop living from the old blueprint and start designing a new one. There was a time when she didn't know this was possible. She thought the thoughts in her head were just part of who she was. She thought worry and self-doubt were just her personality. But then she discovered something powerful, that thoughts are not truth. They are patterns, and patterns can be changed. The woman she was became tired of her own narrative, tired of waiting for circumstances to shift so she could feel better. She realized that if she wanted a different life, she had to become a different version of herself. Not from force, but from conscious, repetitive choice. Now, she wakes up and chooses her thoughts the way she chooses her clothes. She no longer lets her mind wander into familiar suffering. She guides it like a master artist with a paintbrush. She envisions the woman she wants to be and lives from her, not toward her. She walks, talks, breathes, and thinks like the version of herself who is already whole, already free, already enough. Not because she's pretending, but because she understands the brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. The more she rehearses the future she desires, the more familiar it becomes. And eventually, it no longer feels like a distant dream. It feels natural. It feels like home. She doesn't need to know how it's all going to happen. She doesn't cling to timelines or force outcomes. She trusts the process because she's aligned with the vision. That vision is more real to her than her past, more alive than her fears. And even when doubt creeps in, even when old emotions rise, she doesn't run. She breathes. She observes. She remembers that those feelings are not who she is. They are just remnants of who she used to be. When in choosing to not react, to not collapse into the old story, she gives birth to the new one. The rarest woman in the world has become deeply aware of her inner world. She no longer gives her energy to circumstances she cannot control. She knows that her true power is not in reacting to what is, but in aligning with what can be. And she aligns daily. Through meditation, through visualization, through silence, through stillness. She meets herself before the world meets her. She plants her roots deep into the future she's designing. From that place, she lives her day. Others may not understand it. They may call her unrealistic. But she is not here to live by their limitations. She is here to break the pattern, to rewire the cycle, to become the first in her lineage, to live from vision, not trauma. She doesn't use the past as her reference point anymore. She knows that if she keeps looking back, she'll keep repeating what was. So now she looks forward. She imagines the life that lights her up. She steps into the vibration of that life before it physically arrives, because she understands that reality is not something you wait for, something you prepare for. And as she continues to show up for herself, her energy begins to shift. People notice. Opportunities appear. Not because she chased them, but because she matched them. She became the frequency of the life she desired. Not just like that, life started to respond. Her outer world reorganized to reflect her inner state. Not instantly, but inevitably, because she stayed committed. She stayed in alignment. She stayed in the work. This is the difference. This is the rarity. She is no longer driven by fear, by wounds, or by the need to survive. She is led by vision. She is pulled by purpose. She is magnetized by who she is becoming. And in that becoming, she doesn't just change her life, she changes her biology. She changes her brain. She changes the energetic signature she brings. into every room, not from force, from coherence, from harmony, from conscious creation. This is who she is now. And there is no turning back. Asterisk, she walks into the room and the energy shifts. Not because she's loud, not because she's trying to be seen, because she carries a frequency that is undeniable. It's in the way she breathes, the way she listens, the way she doesn't need to compete for attention. She's not performing, she's not proving, she's simply aligned. She radiates presence because her energy is in integrity. She's done the inner work, and now her vibration speaks before she does. There was a time when she didn't understand this. She was drained, reactive, overwhelmed. She kept giving her energy away without even realizing it. What conversations? That went nowhere. To people who never saw her, to worries that only pulled her further from herself. Her nervous system was wired for urgency. Her attention scattered, her boundaries porous, but something in her broke open. Not in a destructive way, but in an awakening. She realized that every thought, every emotion, every environment was either adding to her energy or stealing from it. And she was the gatekeeper. She had to decide what she allowed in and what she poured out. That decision became her turning point. She stopped chasing. She stopped explaining. She stopped apologizing for needing space. Instead, she created new standards. It's not just in what she expected from others, but in what she expected from herself. Her energy had become sacred, and she was no longer willing to offer it to anything or anyone that kept her stuck in old cycles. She understood that where her attention went, her energy flowed. And so she stopped leaking her attention on things that drained her and began focusing it like a laser on what expanded her. This wasn't about controlling her life. It was about taking responsibility for her frequency. She became intentional, mindful. She began to curate her inner world with the same care someone would use to tend a sacred garden. She pulled out the weeds of doubt, comparison, resentment. She nourished the soil with gratitude, presence, forgiveness. Over time, the weeds didn't come back as often. The chaos outside didn't affect her the way it used to, because her roots were growing deeper, her foundation stronger. She also became aware of the energy around her, not just in people, but in environments, in conversations, in the music she listened to, in the content she consumed. She realized that everything carried a frequency, and she had the right to choose what she connected to. So she chose wisely. She detoxed not just her body, but her space, her circle, her habits. She no longer entertained gossip, low vibrational talk, or relationships built on obligation. She chose authenticity over approval, solitude over noise, truth over comfort. And her energy became magnetic. People began to notice, not because she tried to change them, but because she changed herself. Her clarity created contrast. Her peace became disruptive to those who thrived in chaos, and she no longer felt guilty about it. She wasn't here to dim her light to make others comfortable. She was here to embody the highest expression of who she came to be. And that meant being fully accountable for how she showed up, even on the hard days. Even when no one was watching, she realized that energetic integrity is not about being perfect. It's about being aligned. It's about your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, and your words all moving in the same direction. When you say you want peace, but you constantly engage in conflict, your energy becomes incoherent. When you say you value growth, but keep feeding distractions, your field becomes unstable. She didn't want that anymore. She wanted congruence. She wanted harmony between her intentions and her attention. So she practiced. She observed her energy in real time. When she felt herself getting reactive, she paused. When she felt drained, she asked why. When she felt disconnected, she returned to her breath. Slowly, she rebuilt the relationship with her own life force. She no longer looked outside for energy. She generated it through alignment, through boundaries, through deep self-awareness. Now her presence speaks louder than her words. Because it's not just what she says, it's the vibration behind it. It's not just what she does, it's the intention fueling it. She walks through life with a quiet confidence, not because everything is perfect, but because her inner world is coherent. Her energy is no longer scattered. It's integrated. And that coherence doesn't just shift how she feels, it shifts what she attracts, shapes her relationships, her opportunities, her health, becomes the magnet for everything. Her soul is calling in. Because when a woman lives in energetic integrity, the universe listens. Asterisk.